rate perspective, as we all like to talk about insurance rates, we are only up 2.5%, significantly beating inflation this year. So we're very, very pleased with that performance by the entire city and by the city manager's office for managing that entire process. If there's any particular questions about it, I'm going to distribute a few copies of this proposal, so if there's any detail that you'd like to see, you'd be happy to flip through those.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't take out too many trees.
Got it. And I think this was actually submitted to us as well earlier. So
Yes, there should be digitalized copies of
We
those.
did receive a digitized copy.
Fantastic. So I don't know if anyone's had a chance to review those, but if there's any questions on the program, coverage is in line with last year, so there's nothing that has changed or gone down in coverage. Everything has gone up or equal.
Well, Dan, your report is definitely much more concise than the historic presentations, but Steve, come on. But are there questions on the board? Any comments from the city manager?
Yeah, we did get a slight increase this year. You can see it there, about $50,000. But based on the increase we're seeing nationwide, I was actually happy to see that level of an increase. I know it's an obligatory thing, and they've done a really good job of keeping our numbers down. We've had several years, we had almost zero increases, so at some point, and with getting less than a 10% increase here, I think that's more than what I could even expect.
Yeah, I don't think you watch any news where you do not see that premiums are going up on all forms of insurance.
Absolutely.
And from a benchmarking standpoint, just give us perspective. What are things typically running versus our 8%?
Certainly. So on the municipality space specifically, we're seeing 15 to 25% across the board. The majority of that is driven in two areas: property insurance and auto insurance. The auto insurance, in both of those, inflation is a big factor. Cost of constructions are through the roof. You've probably seen that with all the developments going on here in the city with Ovation and the Bridge and Margaritaville and all those discussions that are being had as those costs go up. So with that, of course, if a building costs more to reconstruct, the cost to insure it would follow. Similar in the auto space, I don't know if there's anyone in the room who has recently tried to purchase a new car or had repairs done on their vehicles, but the supply chain issues there are really driving increased costs as well. So those two factors are driving the insurance market really through the roof across the board. 15 to 25% in the municipality space is what we're seeing, and that's throughout Northern Kentucky specifically.
Now, it's great to hear that we're efficient, but what are the targets and what are the things that we've achieved better than others that we can applaud our staff on?
Absolutely. So an easy indicator for one area in the workers' compensation space, there's a factor called an experience mod. That experience mod is a factor that compares you to all of your peers in the industry. So for us, that's other municipalities and local governments. And that mod is a factor of how many or how few claims you have had and the severity of those claims. So if you are right in line with average, you would be at a 1.0 is where you'd be at. And historically, for as long as I've been with the company here working with you guys, we have been under a 1.0. And so right now we're about 9% under the industry average for municipalities here in Kentucky. That's in the workers' compensation space. Outside of that, in the property insurance space, we have not had any claims. I'm knocking on the wood here. In that space this last year for the city, I only have one liability claim to note of a suit against the city that came into us. Outside of that, there's just a few small incidents with vehicles, nothing significant, nothing catastrophic. So it really ties back to the focus on safety that the city has had year in, year out.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
I'm just saying we've made a concentrated effort of, when we started using a risk manager, hiring a risk manager. I mean, we've made a big effort in that direction. So it's nice to see that it's paying off, even though we all know costs are going through the roof.
Yes, no, absolutely. We couldn't agree more. And the investment that the city has put into safety and risk management has really been shown by these figures.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now move to public forum. Anyone like to speak on anything not on the current agenda? Welcome, Charles.
Good evening, everyone. I just came up here to say thank you to all of the Newport residents who came and visited the Italian Fest. As an ambassador, I met people from Australia, Alaska, Denmark, Netherlands, Sicily. I met a young lady who was born here. All her family knew the Pelusos, the Gadilis, and the grandfather, Peluso. She said her name, it was so long that, hey, I don't remember.
And that was all this week.
She had pretty gray hair, real pretty, like Miss Kate's. It was gorgeous. And then I met a lady who said that she had 13 people who was on the police force for the city of Newport. Met a young lady who, I was asking Mr. Ian when you said, he remembered when I was young, I was a swimmer, and he always thought I was going to go to AAU, but life is life. But she knows him and his family, so I wanted to catch him. But I am thankful to the city manager and the police and the firemen. They know what I'm dealing with health-wise, and they made sure that I was taken care of. I'm a simple country boy, but I'm so proud to represent the city of Newport. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles, and your whole team that manned the booth this weekend. It was hot, and you did good work, so thanks. Anyone else for public forum? Seeing no one, public forum is now closed. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or corrections? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Redwanski,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. Old business, second reading of Commissioners' Ordinance Number 9.
An ordinance of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, amending Section 111.52A of the Code of Ordinances concerning the retail sales regulatory license fee amount payable for certain transactions.
So moved.
Second.
Tom, just give a quick reminder on this and what the changes are.
Yes, under the version that we voted on last meeting for the second reading tonight. So what this does is reduce the alcohol regulatory fee from 2.5% on retail sales to 2.0% across the board for everyone.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions on or comments on the board? I did get some feedback. People are happy about this, not surprisingly. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Redwanski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. Second reading of Commissioners' Ordinance Number 12.
An ordinance of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, amending Section 31.4A of the Code of Ordinances concerning personnel within the Planning and Development Department.
So moved.
Second.
So just a recap on what this is a creation of a position, including the Newport historian position that Scott Clark will fill, and then separating those duties out for the historic preservation officer with now the new Buena Vista Historic District in place. We've certainly needs additional staff and some additional time to man that program. So that's essentially what this is related to.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Any questions on the board?
Just a comment, this is one thing that I thought was very important, that we make sure that the Buena Vista Historic District is set up for success. And Mr. Clark, I look forward to seeing the projects over the next couple of months that you'll be working on. Thank you.
All right, Tiffany, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Redwanski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. New business, Commissioners' Order Number 43.
In order, the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, appointing Jennifer Williams to the position of Historic Preservation Officer effective July 1, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Now we have Jennifer here with us tonight, Board.
So this is related to that change that we just had the second read on. I'm pleased to recommend Jennifer Williams to the position of Historic Preservation Officer. She came to the city about a year and a half ago, maybe a little more, as an intern, going to school at NKU for her second master's degree. Over the course of the past year or so, she was really instrumental in helping us navigate all of the updates and the changes to the ordinances and the guidelines related to historic preservation. Originally, she had no intention on choosing a career in public administration, city work, and she liked it so much, she came to me and asked if there was a space for her. So now she's actually changed her degree to a MPA degree. She's all in at this point. So with that, that's
Great.
It's great to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Comments or questions on the board?
I'm just really happy that you found your passion here and in historic preservation. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, Jennifer, talk a little bit, let the people know about yourself a little bit, and that other master's degree, all right? And a little
I am from Boone County originally. I'm a Northern Kentucky girl. I spent some time out in California getting a master's in social psychology and program evaluation. I started volunteering at a history museum and realized that was a lot cooler. So I decided to go into public history. Came back to Northern Kentucky University and was lucky enough to get an internship through the public history department. And as Brian said, I did not have the intention of working in government, but I found that I really liked it, and I really like Newport. It's been so welcoming, it feels like another home. So that's where I am now.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
glad to welcome you, and you've made yourself indispensable because you've learned and you've built and you've been a part of this entire process, which makes us all proud. All the projects that you've done, nothing but compliments all around, so we look forward to you stepping into this new role.
Thank you so much.
Tremendous asset to us. Thank you so much.
Great news.
All right. You want to add anything else, or can we call the roll?
You can call the roll.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Redwanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Recton?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell?
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli?
Yes.
All right.
Commissioner's Order number 44.
In order, the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, authorizing and directing City Manager Thomas J. Fermi of the City of Newport, Kentucky, to enter into a contract with Local 45 IAFF, setting forth rates of pay, hours of work, and conditions of employment.
So moved.
Second.
City Manager Fermi.
First, I want to express my professional appreciation on behalf of myself and Mr. Hayden for the professionalism exhibited by the association, our union. They were the utmost professionals, and they wanted to work with us to our mutual benefit. Brief executive summary of the main points of the new contract that we're recommending. So the first one, the most important one, I guess, from a change point of view, is called a Kelly Day. So the implementation of a Kelly Day. Part of this, though, whenever we enter into a negotiation, we compile information from surrounding jurisdictions regarding whatever department that we're dealing with. It's really important to us that we be competitive, both in a recruitment and a retention point of view. Particularly in public safety, it's a very expensive proposition to hire someone in public safety, whether it be fire or police, but then training is also very expensive. So basically, I've always said in the police department, so I'm sure the fire department's similar, you're looking at 2 to 3 years on a new recruit without any prior experience, at least. And I'm sure that still holds true to this day, and I'm sure it's the same way. So if we lose someone after 2 or 3 years, we've really not got the full benefit of that person, and yet we've got a huge investment already. And so this is critically important as we move forward into the future for our whole success. When I was a young officer here, we lost 18 officers in 1 year. 18. We lost a third of our department in 1 year. And that's something that's very difficult to operate in that when you're constantly training new people and they're working the street and being thrust out there with little guidance and supervision because everyone's new. So it's critical. So the Kelly Day has been introduced as a strategic measure to reduce the workload and increase rest periods for the firefighters, who are often subject to intense and prolonged periods of duty. The additional day off scheduled periodically is intended to combat fatigue and promote mental well-being amongst the crews. I'm sure no one of you all can understand the thought behind that. And we bought into this 100%. I'm talking about myself and Mr. Hayden. And by allowing more time for rest and recuperation, firefighters can maintain higher levels of alertness and physical readiness, which is critical for their safety and effectiveness in emergency responses. Our long-term benefits are expected to include a reduction in work-related injuries and a decrease in unscheduled overtime, leading to a more resilient workforce. In addition, recruitment and retention play a significant role. Pay increases. As we found out last year with Public Works and with the police department, again, the surrounding jurisdictions have made remarkable inroads in the pay structure for their employees, whether it be Public Works or police or fire. So, and there again, we looked at all these surrounding agencies and the ones that mostly are, if you want to use the term, competitors that we keyed on. We don't consider Louisville competitors, so we keep it to Northern Kentucky, particularly Covington, Fort Thomas, and those surrounding jurisdictions for that. So in recognition of the demanding nature of the work and the critical role firefighters play in community safety, a structured pay increase has been negotiated. These raises are not only a reflection of the current economic landscape, but also the acknowledgement of the dedication and risk associated with firefighting. The financial uplift will aid in retaining skilled personnel and attracting new talent to our rank. And there again, I've lived it personally over the years. I know Jim Parsons is here. He lived it. Phil Shepardine lived it. The boards all lived it at that time where we had huge turnover at many times. When we finally broke the ice years ago and started paying the departments more money, our turnover rate plummeted. And so we've lived that firsthand for that. Unfortunately, though, over the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of cities have made big financial commitments to their labor force, and so it affects us all ultimately for that. Staffing changes, staffing adjustments have been made to ensure that the fire stations are optimally manned. So we've had a lot of issues over the years with personnel, so they committed to a cap on number of personnel that can be taken off. It's 3. It used to be unlimited before being off on vacation, so that has changed to put 3. I'm recommending adding 6 full-time positions. I knew this day was going to come. We've talked about it in the past. We talked about it during the board retreat last February. So not only in the police, but also in fire, but also the police and public works and code. So all our operational personnel over the next 4 to 5 years, we have a plan to expand the number of personnel that are out here doing the work. It's going to be critical as we move forward, without a doubt. So that's an important thing as well. Part of that too, it used to be an obligatory thing. Like if you come on the department, you had to have a paramedic certification within a period of time. So now that number is, there's 9 positions that no longer require the paramedic certification. So that's been a big obstacle in our recruiting, like high school people, local kids and things like that for recruitment. Because you virtually had to have that paramedic certification before you got hired. Because I think it was a year, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. I think you only had a year to get your certification. So unless you were pretty much into the program already, making that year was very difficult, if not impossible, for that. So the enhancements, and I agree with this statement, to this contract, including the Kelly Day and the pay raise, which by the way is 8%, 5 and 5. It's a 3-year deal, first year 8, 5 and 5. It doesn't necessarily go straight across the board. It's based on what position they are. Some are higher, some are lower, based on that. It not only benefits the firefighters directly, but it enhances our operational capabilities of the department, ultimately leading to improved community safety and trust in our emergency services. As we move forward, these contractual amendments will play a pivotal role in shaping a positive and sustainable working environment for our firefighters. In closing, one of the things that we actually had very frank conversations of how both parties felt. One of the things that they were more than willing to work with us on was the unscheduled overtime. So the chief and I have had a conversation, the union reps have had conversations, so they will work on that together to make sure that we get in through our budgeted numbers through overtime. We've had a real problem over the years with not meeting our budgeted numbers, and that day has to stop. If we're going to make an improvement over here, we have to make improvements over here, and they're all on board with that. And there again, I can't say enough about how they conducted themselves and their willingness to move forward with the city in a win-win situation for that. So I highly recommend the adoption by the board of this contract that I have set forward, or put forward. Yes?
I had to look up a Kelly Day. Do you want to explain, just for the, as you would say, for the audience's edification, what a Kelly Day is?
Well, yes, from me Cliff Notes.
From me Cliff
You know, the
Notes.
chief here is better at this. I keep asking him about it, so I have him explain it real quick.
Thanks.
So as you know, firefighters don't work a typical schedule, so we don't work 5 days a week. We work a rotating schedule. So hypothetically, if your Kelly Day is Wednesday, your shift falls on Wednesday every 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks, you have Wednesday off. So effectively, whatever Kelly Day you get, you will never work that day regardless of your schedule.
Will that impact the overtime then?
So the daily staffing is being reduced from 12 to 11. So the increase in staffing, and I do not want to speak out of turn, sir, the increase in staffing, those individuals will offset having the overtime once we get to full staff. The 2 people on Kelly Day will not be covered by overtime.
And another thing too, that myself and the chief, I didn't address it here, but if we have a, knock on wood, but if we have a major emergency where the manning has to be called in and things, the additional manpower is going to be critical. So with all the development we have, and we're talking about Margaritaville and all the Ovation build out and everything else we've got going on, if we have a major thing, and we've had them in the past, we've had issues with that, and the additional manpower will come, it will pay it, trust me, we'll be paid back over and over again if we ever have anything like that.
I understand this is 6 additional fire EMS resources.
Yes.
That's great to hear, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank Local 45 for your endorsement in the last election, and part of taking those types of endorsements is following through on what you said that you're going to do by supporting fire and EMS. So I'm very pleased with this contract. Thank you.
Anyone else on the board?
I just really want to say thank you for working so hard, everybody that worked hard on this. This is a really big deal, and it's very important. And when I hear things like, well, we may not be competitive with surrounding districts, it really, that's scary. That's scary because the work that you all do is critical to the safety of this community. And I've observed that firsthand in my own neighborhood. So the work that you do is impressive. Your dedication and hard work is, I'm in awe. I really am. And to see this it's very good. I'm really happy that we're able to do this. Thank thanks to y'all for your work on that.
Yeah. The only thing I want to do is I want to challenge the chief and Tom and John. We're cutting our overtime in half in the proposed budget. Typically, we've run right past it and blown past those numbers. So the challenge to you is to hold those numbers, and I hope we can. So I appreciate it, though.
Talked to Lenny today, we jumped into the budget conversation, but if I'm understanding correctly, the fire department's been down 3 people for quite some time. But their budget still came in under budget, or not terribly over budget. Did you want to talk about that?
Which portion of the budget in particular, Mayor?
Well, just that particular.
Personnel.
Just the overtime.
Personnel?
Yeah, yes, personnel.
So personnel's down. We're short 3. We've been short at different levels for different times. And that in and of itself allows us to have our personnel come in under budget. And also, it does affect the overtime budget, but it kind of offsets when you start talking about how many people we haven't had.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to, Lenny somewhat answered it this morning, but I just wanted to highlight that when we're talking about overtime, that there actually were significant reasons, and you still came in under budget and personnel.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief.
I just want to applaud the partnership. It's amazing. I mean, it became clear to me a couple years ago that quality of life issues were real, and all of you were feeling them, and the schedule and the grind was a challenge. I think one of the challenges that now we have ahead of us is recruitment. Now we have a better contract and the ability to acquire more workers because they'll be more excited about working here. But the work goes undone until we recruit all those positions. And the partnership in allowing just firemen to progress through the system and grow here with all of your support, even though they're not going to be in the medic field day 1 or day 1 year, they're going to grow in this environment, and it's going to be great that you're going to be teachers of them because your professionalism is at a high level, and we get a lot of praise for how the work that you do. So thank you for this partnership and this agreement. It's good for both parties, and let's call the roll.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Radwanski,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes, thank you.
Robert, you want to make any comments?
I just want to thank.
Come on up.
Commissioners for that.
We'll sign this tomorrow, just come in tomorrow.
I just want to thank Board of Commissioners just for your support, the city manager and Mr. Hayden. It was a good time, it was fun. We had our laughs, and just want to thank the city for their support and just continuing to advance the fire department forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I call the roll yet?
You did.
I did, okay. I was thinking, wait a second.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
All right, Commissioner's Order number 45.
An order of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, authorizing City Manager Thomas J. Fermi to enter into an agreement with Kentucky League of Cities for property and liability insurance with Kentucky Employers Mutual for workers' compensation insurance.
So moved.
Second.
Anyone want to speak on this? Pretty
Mayor, I
straightforward.
can't add anything more than they've already did.
And what it just says, all right?
Yep.
Very good. I just have one question. Can we actually switch the numbers so that the previous one would be 45 for local 45? I'm joking. I'm joking. All right, with no questions, Commissioner's Order number 45, please call the roll.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Radwanski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. Commissioner's Order number 46.
An order of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, authorizing and approving the issuance of taxable industrial building revenue bonds in one series to be issued in an aggregated combined principal amount not to exceed $40 million the proceeds of which shall be used to finance the acquisition, construction, installation, improvement, and equipping of an industrial building facility or facilities to be leased to the World Peace Hospitality Limited Liability Company, a Kentucky limited liability company. It affiliates, successors, and/or assigns authorizing and approving a lease agreement, an agreement in lieu of tax agreement, bond purchase agreement, and such other related documents, certificates, and agreements, and authorizing such other actions necessary or required related to the issuance of bonds and the financing of the project.
So moved.
Second.
And well done.
Yeah, nice job.
Mayor, we have, Mr. Parsons is here tonight in case there's any technical questions, but from me, Cliff Note versions here. So this is, we had an inducement resolution for this, the Peace Belt project for this, and this is just following through on something that we've obligated ourselves to do. So, Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just for the record, this is for the financing of the two hotel projects. And just also for the record, these bonds are not issued by the city, but they're not the debt of the city. They're the responsibility of the project, so the city has no responsibility whatsoever on these financing. Now, I know, I just want to confuse them. These are not related directly to the bonds you're issuing separately for the public garage. In fact, we plan to close on the financing of the the hotel projects by the end of July. So we need to get the bond order authorized so we can move forward, so you close the bonds and the loan financing at the same time. If you have any specific questions about the project, Mr. Pan is here to answer questions about the project and how it's moving forward.
On the board?
Yeah, on the project itself, Sean, you want to speak to the length of time of the site coming up and ready to go? Build out?
I'm sorry, what's your question again?
How's the build-out coming along? What do you expect to be open and ready to run on the two hotels?
We are hoping to start the construction of the parking garage by October or November this year. And hope
Okay.
parking garage will be finished and operating by end of 2025. Okay? The hotel will follow about 1 year behind. So end of 2026, the two hotel will open.
Okay. When do you break ground on the hotel?
Say, will be spring of next year.
Next year, okay. And the negotiation on the office structure that is on that site too, how is that coming along?
Still coming along. Hopefully with some good news this week.
All right.
We are expecting a final approval of our hotel loan this Thursday.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, Park National Bank is a lender on the project for the hotels.
All right. Thank you.
I'll just add the other question. When's the bell moving? Everybody's wondering, when's the bell moving?
We are working on that. We need to have a meeting with the city manager to talk about some details relative to that.
Okay.
Where it's going changes.
I was going to ask
Yeah,
that. Did we figure out?
Day.
Yeah.
So we are working on a solution for that.
Okay.
It's temporary solution, because
Right.
it's permanent solution, there's going to be a process.
That's
It's
right,
going to
that's
take a
right.
little while.
That's
So there are a lot of questions, but I appreciate you offering the insight, and I feel like no matter how many times you indicate to us and to others that it isn't the city's responsibility, somehow people misunderstand it. So thank you for drawing that clarity again today.
Speaking of things on the site, are all the other monuments moved? And some of those are owned by others and are not owned by us. Do you know?
Monument, we'd like to have the monument move at the same time the bill gets moved. And currently, the plan is to move all the monument and the bell to hopefully the city lot, the city
Okay.
service lot.
Okay.
Yes,
The
they're
other
gonna be-
monuments, though, the firefighters'
Firefighters.
monuments
Yes.
are owned by them. I've gotten a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, everyone's curious where things are going to land, but we're going to find them a high prominent location in a public space.
But those as well are not owned by the city.
Correct. None of the items are actually owned by the city.
Just one,
Which one?
Chief Atwell.
Okay, the Chief Atwell Memorial's the city, but the rest of the memorials are not the property of the city.
But the chief's handling all that.
Okay, great. Did you have anything to share about that?
The only thing I have is that the Northern Kentucky Fire Chiefs meeting, it was approved that they were fine with it being moved, and, it's they understand it's not at their cost, and the maintenance will still be done and all those things.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Congrats.
Okay, Tiffany, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Redwanski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. Now everyone's favorite part. Commissioners' ordinance number 13.
An ordinance of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, amending ordinance 2023-06 by amending the adopted budget of the City of Newport for the general fund for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
City Manager Fromey.
Thank you, Mayor. We put this out in the packet, so it's just a paper copy there, or digital copy, whichever, on the overhead here. So briefly, each year when we adopt a budget, that's our best guess, or guesstimate, or estimate of what our revenues and our expenditures are going to fall during the course of the fiscal year. I think that we've done a pretty good job over the years of making a good estimate for that, but it's never going to be perfect, hence an estimate. So it requires an amendment for that. So tonight is a two-pronged issue. So we have the amendment of the current budget, and then we have the adoption of the proposed budget, a recommended budget from staff and from myself. So as you can see, let's go to the next slide there. So we're talking about, so we have the budget has two purposes: set goals, objectives, and service levels for the city to meet during the next year. So the perfect example of that is personnel. So we, like I said earlier, we're projecting over the next 4 or 5 years our numbers on our operational staff to grow to meet our growing needs and requirements, and to estimate and allocate the money the city will take in and spend during the year. So tonight, and you'll see what the fiscal year is, so we're currently asking for an amendment of the current fiscal year of '24 is what we're looking at for the amendment tonight. So actually, Mayor, I'm addressing both the next two items.
Okay.
So we have the amended budget and we have the adoption of the proposed budget as well. So go to the next slide, please. There we go. So here's personnel between fiscal year '24, which is current and expires June 30th or 31st. And then fiscal year '25, that's our proposed budget. It starts July 1st. So you can see how it breaks down on staffing. City manager, and I'm not going to bore you with reading every one of these, but you can see the numbers across the board. We've made some amendments already on getting for the 5-year plan for the police, fire, code enforcement. Some of those are shuffling people around. You'll see the city manager's office drop one. That's because they've been reassigned to another department. Community services, we're adding a staff. That's due to the grant. So working on concrete for the tree grant. So we'll be doing the services for that. So we're bringing on a new employee that has concrete experience for doing that work. The refuse fund, we do have 2 people, the refuse fund. That's because of all the street cleaning that we're also, not only do we do it for aesthetics, but we're also required to do it, especially for like salt and everything else. So that's something that you have to do as well. So there, and also litter. So solid waste also goes to the refuse as well. So here's our projected revenues for the year. So, and there, as I've said many times in the past, we take a very conservative approach. I don't like to exaggerate, neither does our finance staff, Lenny Kuntz, and our department heads don't like to try to over-exaggerate our revenue, because it's going to bite you in the end.
We've been there.
Yes, we have been there.
And it's not fun.
No.
Not fun, no.
So we do look at it, and we meet on this quite a bit. Finance does a great job with this, and they help me out a lot.
So you can see what we're projecting for our fiscal year '25 revenues. Property taxes, which do include, right, Lenny, pilots, payments. This is an opportune time here. Talking about pilot payments. This is our pilot payment schedule that we collect from the various projects that are IRB projects. So if you look at the pilot payment schedule there, so fiscal year '22 actual 651, '23 actual 711,000. So what we're budgeting for, now amended budget for fiscal year '24, which is current year, 751,000. And then next year, we're budgeting a proposed 754, but the way it's going, that's probably going to grow. So why is that important? Without that program, our property revenue would be $754,000 less because of the compensating rates. There's no debate about that. So if these were all hit on the tax rolls, it may be a few dollars to the individual's pocket and save them a few dollars. But when you look at the collective for the entire city, you know, it's a small amount per individual, but it's a lot for the whole city in providing services. So $754,000, to give you an example, basically those 6 firemen we talked about tonight, that's the 6 firemen. So that's what that would be. So our property tax revenue projected to be 3.8 million, so roughly you drop that down to about 3.1.
Can you give the Romy Cliff Notes on what the pilot payment program is, how that works? For the audience or anybody
Yeah.
watching?
I think drawing clarity to the fact that it's a state program and the state must authorize this, correct?
Yes. So the IRB is industrial revenue bonds. There are certain categories that are eligible for industrial revenue bonds that have to be authorized by the local city first. Hence, we do the inducement resolution. And then we have to make a deal with the school board and the county because they also tax property taxes. The county speaks for all the special taxing districts like the health department and the library and everything else. So that those are called special taxing districts. So that's what happens. So everybody has their piece of the pie. And if you've heard my State of the Cities before, I advocate for local sales tax and do away with local property tax to homeowners, not commercial, but homeowners. The reason why I do that, first of all, it would be a much higher source of revenue, but everybody has their fingers in your house. Everybody. So Ken Recton's home is being taxed by every agency. Everybody in the room here that lives in the city that has a house, you're being taxed by everybody. The state, the county, the city, the library, everybody. The school board.
Health department.
Health
It's kind of
department,
unworkable.
right.
And yet, we're all fighting for the same dollars. And so, this is where the IRB comes in. We're limited by the compensating rate, and I gave the Romy Cliff Note version. The compensating rate simply means if you have $100 worth of property value in the city, and you bring in $1 revenue, if the property value's double to 200, you still can only have $1 revenue. That's it. It's simple as that.
Well,
So what is-
$1.04.
So what does that mean? What that means is your tax rate in that case drops in half. So if it was a penny before, it's going to be half a penny after. Now, the only caveat to that is you can raise revenues by 4%. But that means if your revenue was $100, I mean, and it goes to 200 value, you can bring in $1.04. That's what the +4 is. Yes,
Without a challenge.
without challenge,
We can
correct.
go- We can
Yes,
go as high as we want to, but we would be challenged.
without a challenge, correct. But we take the +4 here. And Commissioner Breckton's right. So you could decide to say, a lot of people don't know this, you could say, the board could say, we want a 25% increase. I'll guarantee you, you're going to get so many people to sign a recall on that.
Yeah, and then that'll go on a petition and it'll
And
be
then
voted
we
down.
have to put the money in escrow, and there's a good shot it'd have to be all rebated. And we'd have no increase. So the prudent thing is you take a +4, which is nominal today, with the way costs are. So that's really the simplest thing to do, and I'll bring that up because there's a lot of questions and I've never weighed in on it on the listservs, but the reality of it is Newport, everybody in the county by law has to be reevaluated every 4 years. We do not do the evaluations, the county PVA does them, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but the county PVA does evaluations. He has to do them every 4 years. It's Newport's turn. So you'll see people getting evaluations that are much higher, but the purchase prices have driven that over the last 4 or 5 years. Now, you may have been in the middle of that cycle and you may have bought a house. When you buy a house, it's at market value. So what you paid for the house, if you paid $200,000 for the house, that's going to go right on the way on the PVA. So if you bought a house, that's your value already. Now, if you owned your house for a while, you may and not had anything done to it, or you haven't had a secondary mortgage or anything added to it, you may see some significant increases. Well, let's just say for the sake of argument, everybody's value goes up 20%. There's going to be highs and lows. You're going to have some people that are higher, some people are lower. But the average is 20%. So what you're going to see is your tax rate's going to drop by 20%. The city's tax rate will drop due to the compensating rate, 20%. So that's really about as simple as I could put that with the compensating rate and the PVA assessments and things like that.
Some areas of the country give a break to, they call them homesteaded properties, but it's not always an age-related thing. But sometimes.
Disability and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that would affect the city, but this is really hard on a lot of people in Newport right now, and it's going to be hard next year when they do, whatever part. But
And I don't know what the formula is for that, but it was like $40,000. The first $40,000 is like exempt. And I don't know what that does, like with the new value, it may go up again.
yeah, it's still, it's a burden on people now.
Yes.
I mean, that's not what we're here to talk about,
Right.
but I've just been trying to think of what would be a solution. Did you explain the actual pilot program in your, okay.
I think you missed the one part, though, is
But it's
it goes,
in lieu of
it goes
that.
from the city, it goes
Yes.
to the
Yes.
county and the school board, but then it
Right.
has to go to the state.
Yes.
Right.
So, but what happens is with the IRB program, so it has to be approved by all those entities, then the state has to approve it. And then what happens, we negotiate what's called a pilot. It's a payment in lieu of taxes, hence pilot, for those entities. It's usually a reduced rate, but there again, people think that we reach into our budget to give incentives to people. No, we don't. Because most of the time, a lot of these developments, when we look at their pro formas, they're not going to make it. So I've looked at a lot of these forms over the years, and the cost of building down in the urban environment with the tight areas and the pre-existing infrastructure you had to deal with, it's very, very expensive. And I know I've heard this story 1,000 times already about the expenses, and I've seen it firsthand for that. So particularly building structured parking. Structured parking is ridiculous. At 40,000 a space above ground, it used to be, not too long ago, it was 18,000. And God knows what is underground. It's $55,000, $60,000 underground as we speak. So, but the pilot payment then is a reduced tax. They're paying a reduced tax. So basically right now, if you're all in with everybody, you're around $16, $17 per thousand, if you're for all the entities. So a homeowner that owns a $100,000 home, through all the things, you're paying $1,700 in property tax. is what that means. So they have and they use the savings on that tax to pay their bonds off. But there's no money out of the city, and actually it is a benefit to the city and oftentimes to the school board as well. It is a big benefit for everybody.
You've made certain that the school board's brought in on the
Yes.
discussion, which was not always the case.
No, matter of fact, I had just recently made a presentation to the school board.
I think it's also important to note that, if you look at our overall tax rate, this is now almost 20%
You know, well,
of our entire tax rate. And if you took out commercial, it's even more.
yeah. So, commercial right now, without just the pilots, commercial is, well, all the pilots are commercial, basically.
Right,
They
but
were
then there's commercial on
residential.
top of that as well.
Yes. And so Newport Pavilion and all them, Newport on the Levee, they're all commercial property.
And you kind of skimmed over the credit I was trying to give you, is that the schools didn't always get the benefits of this, but you
Right.
made sure that you dealt with the schools and that they got the benefit.
Well, we were required to by law as well.
Well,
There was a law change.
oh, okay.
But,
No, we did it before then, though. I know
but
we
Tom
did.
has done a really good job in involving the school's leadership in those discussions and making sure that the school board understands what's going on with
Working.
that. I went through that previous period as a school board member and saw the change in that. So it's actually been very helpful.
So before we had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was quite a bone of contention.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, it was. It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, but it's some time though, and you're right though, on one thing, and you're both right, there was a law change, but also the city did take pains on the other with trying to get to school, so like the aquarium predated those changes. Hofbrau House predated the changes, but there was pilots for the schools. But there was also pilots that the school didn't get to,
Right.
so, as well. So the board did, at some point, we did make adjustments on trying to take care of the school system as well.
That's important.
So, and then license and permit, and Lenny, real quick, can you go?
Before we leave pilots, where are we now with regard to it as a percentage? What is a pilot program as a percentage of the actual tax?
It's rough, well, based on the quick math there, it's about 20%.
So we're only charging 20% for a pilot.
Oh, no,
No, it's
I'm
50% of
sorry.
the income.
I want to know what percentage of potential tax that would be paid, what the decrease is for the customer.
So it's based, I think, recently, the school board's been around $4, which is roughly 40% or a little over 40% of what their normal tax is.
Okay.
Ours is probably about 50%,
Okay.
and the county's about 50%. About right.
Thank you. Are you building in escalation on those year over year?
Most of them do have escalators in there.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
on that. Where we at here? License and permits. Lenny, you want to briefly talk about what's covered on license and permits? Just come on in.
So license and permits, that's occupational license, payroll tax, insurance premium tax, rental, both commercial and residential, alcohol licensing, and the building permits.
Just go ahead and go down the list and what all the rest of them, fines and forfeits and stuff.
Fines and forfeits, that's, real quick, it might be, Matt, would you run back and
Parking.
flip the revenue draft forward? Just to kind of be more visual if we go through this. While Matt's pulling that up,
I think I got it.
you know, speaking of the pilots, it is an investment in the future. So just recently, seeing Hofbrau House and the IB Goodman building come off of the pilot program and go onto the tax roll, to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, they're not permanent. These things have a finite period, so some will phase in and others are phasing out.
Usually 20 or 30 years, yes?
It's 20 to 30.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can see the major categories here: fines and forfeitures. It's the traffic fines. It's also housing. It's the code enforcement, all the different citations that they have. Sometimes we get some police confiscations. We did have a big one in '22, but we currently have an officer working with the DEA, so we've been having some monies come in through that Department of Justice. We separated that out into a separate line item. Charges for services, these are broken into the different departments. My department, the lion's share, is the percentage. We get a percentage of collecting for the school. School really doesn't have a mechanism to collect taxes, so we provide that service for them. We do accounting services for the dispatch center downstairs. The next department is police. That's your parking meters is the large item there. Fire is the ambulance billing. Laser pointer here. So that we're now involved with a Medicaid program. So we see a split there, that APAP program. That's additional monies we're getting through ambulance billing. In the first 2 years, we didn't have it split out, so it's kind of rolled up into that upper number, that 520 and that 681. We split it out last year to kind of show the difference on that. Public Works, that's just the reimbursement from the state for state grass cuts, recreation, pool monies, and then we get into uses of property, the leases, and the rent. You'd stop me if there's any one in particular. Sales of used equipment, we always kind of leave that budget blank and just those come up. I don't think we really have anything planned very far in advance on that. We have 2 franchise fees that we charge. One is the towing, and then the utility, kind of leaving the utility flat at 800, but we feel that's actually going to come in higher. Claims, vehicle claims, again, this is, the hope is that those are going to be zero. As you can see, from time to time, we unfortunately have damaged vehicles and damaged property. Next, federal grants. This is where you're going to see the fact that we're at a $28 million budget. We had that happening, and we have our last. This is our fiscal year 24 is our last year of ARPA. That 1.25 million. That is not in fiscal year 25. They gave the opportunity for those monies to be spent through December of 24. We went ahead and stopped at June of 24. State funds, incentive pay there at the top, we built into the budget, not only in public, we were under the impression it was going to hit $4,600 at 44. Yeah, it's really close to 44, so on the expense side, we're going to see some lower figures, but also that revenue come down just a little bit. The road aid's down just a little bit, part of that program. State opioid settlement. So originally, we were putting these in a deferred revenue till we figured out how to spend them. They're highly restrictive. The auditor came in and said, well, this is litigation, it's a settlement, you need to recognize it. So we had to recognize 381 last year. Of course, at that time when we passed the budget, we didn't anticipate that. But we just got word of like the third round of settlements, which is like Walmart, Walgreens, CVS. So we're looking at 377 for this fiscal year. So there's a need to start, as we recognize these revenues, we need to offset this because we're recognizing the revenue, but the cash is still there. So we're going to have expenses down the road, so we want to try to line those up. And one of the additional personnel in the police department is a social worker, and that is the mechanism to fund that social worker.
Can Chief talk about that a little bit?
Yes, Vice Mayor, very excited. As people have seen in the news, a lot of surrounding agencies have been moving to a social worker program. It's going to be consistent with what I consider a lot of detective work, a lot of follow-up, helping our residents get the help they can need and that is offered that's already there. So we're going to be lockstep with anybody who needs help with this opioid money and get a great person in here with a lot of compassion to go out in our community and do things that a uniformed police officer can sometimes be intimidating to do. So a person that is non-uniform and willing to go out and take the extra steps to ensure other people's health and safety.
What percentage of the run, I don't know if you can pull this out of your head, what percentage of the runs do you think would benefit from a social worker?
I believe it would be a very decent percentage. I'd say 50 to 75%, just from my experience. Soft number, don't quote me on that. But a lot of calls for service historically do involve some sort of mental health or addiction.
Some jurisdictions are doing this.
Yes, yeah. It was spoken about earlier about, I think city manager mentioned when we look at other cities and municipalities that have good legal staffs, we all look at each other's policies. We work with Boone County, Cincinnati, Covington, Campbell County, places that have really robust staffs like ours, and we check each other's policies out and what we're going to do with monies. And we've seen that the opioid money can be used for this effectively and follow all the rules of using the money.
Good. Do you think you'll have any trouble finding that person?
No, we have actually, just the rumor has gotten out that we're looking for it. I know Alexandria Police have done a great job with Kelly Pompilio. We're bending her ear constantly. There's a lot of people out there that want to help people, and we're very fortunate to have this money, and we'll be one of those cities as well this coming year.
Following up on that, do you expect this on-call position as well, or is this just a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday?
Yes, my plan would be an on-call. But we do, night shift has a lot of needs with mental health and addiction as well. We do want a person that will have flexibility to come out at any given time. Obviously supported by us for any safety measures that might need to be there. We'll be right there with them when need be, but whenever we're not needed anymore, we can back off and they can go down their path.
Very good, thanks.
And just to get perspective, what were we using those dollars for before? Because I've seen a lot of shows talking about how cities are not using those dollars properly. We were using it for primarily Narcan and what else? Okay.
It was very up in the air, so we had to, they did legal staff and then try to claw back funds from us.
Great, thank you.
Flip back real quick to utility franchise fee. Talk a little bit about how that's arrived at.
So we receive a monthly report from Duke Energy, and they lay out receipts. We collect 3% on that. There's some backouts, I think, for administration and items of that. So every time it comes in, I think we go back to 98. I think we can go back and review every month until then. So.
The reason I asked that, I watched with interest that Covington is looking at an increase in their utility franchise fee. We've been monitoring that and watching what they're doing there, and what is our cap on that fee? And okay. Covington was talking about going to 5 or something. Okay.
Never been any.
Yeah. I'd love to know if Covington's within their bounds to do that, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, local reimbursements. The largest one here is the, we have that housing authority. So one of the increase in staff in the city manager's department is the public housing coordinator. That's funded by the housing authority. That person was part of the year, fiscal year 24. We had that for a full year. Interest earnings, this is interesting. So much was happening last year. We were a little bit late with the budget last year. Forgot to update interest, so it kind of had a default 50,000. One of the citizens let me know through the website that, hey, you talking about all these reserves you have and you only have 50,000 in the budget. I was like, that was an overlook. It's going to be much larger than that. As you can see, we're almost 242, maybe slightly higher. Went with a comparable number just next year for now. I did make a recommendation to the city manager for an investment advisor, so that number should be a lot more than what we currently have in the budget.
Significantly more.
Yes, but in the interest of being conservative, yeah.
So, speaking of that, will that come before us as a recommendation or an agreement to sign a contract for the manager, or do you know how that'll come up?
I was just going to send it out to the board and say
Okay.
this is a recommendation from Lenny.
Okay.
Just go ahead and get rolling, because we're pretty much ready to go. So he
Okay.
just got that to me last week.
Good.
So I anticipate sending it out to you all. He did do a good process. He interviewed 4 different companies, so I was satisfied with it, and I agree with his recommendation. That will be coming out probably tomorrow in the information packet.
Lenny talked to me about that, and I really like the fact that the assets are held by the bank and only recommendations on the changing, so, that's cool. Great. Thanks, Lenny.
Yep, sorry, operating transfer, this is part of the tree grant is running through the Community Development Fund. So there is going to be some public work assistance with the tree wells and some other tasks with that tree program. So it's going to come in, and we'll bill for the hours or whatnot that our staff is using and how we would normally bill equipment and whatnot. And then that's why you're seeing it as an operating transfer. So that also offsets other staff members.
We're paying Renewport $10,000 for that a year. That sound right from what we discussed?
Yes, there was, I got the breakdown, we had a meeting with the tree, and there was an allotment for urban canopy, Renewport, tree wells, trees themselves.
But that was part of their grant application?
Right.
Funds, okay. They're actually being paid out grant funds,
Got it.
okay? Not the city funds.
Got it. Yeah, I think one thing, Tom, I'm not sure where you're at on your report here, but one thing I do think it's important to highlight is the benefit that we have financially with some of the services that we offer different cities. Could you, just for the edification of the public, share some of that with what we're doing with animal control and code enforcement, and what we're doing with Woodlawn?
The big one we do is code, police, and fire, and public works with the city of Woodlawn. So we recently met with another city. Until we have the agreement done, I don't want to say it, but they approached us about participating in the animal control. And I anticipate another city wanting to participate with that, local adjacent communities that would want to do that. And they've done a really good job with animal control and things like that. There was a nice article in the paper. They were talking about Bellevue, Dayton, and Covington, although we've been proactive in talk about consolidation or cooperative ventures. They didn't call us up about it, but we're always got an open ear for combined services, not necessarily combining cities, but combined services for economic reasons for that, like the dispatch center and things like that. So we're always open to those kind of conversations. And as we move into the future, I think more and more cities are going to have to go that way. They got to, just for survival's
Yeah,
sake.
the smaller ones, I don't see where they can. I've been watching some of the
Yeah.
news articles of neighboring communities and then their budgets, and we're thankfully financially in a really solid position, and that's due to the leadership that we have from a consistency standpoint that former Commissioner Nepshill discussed earlier this evening.
But there again, I mean, when you really look at the overall scheme of things, we're a small city. I mean, we're 15, 16,000. It's according, if you believe the census or not, but we don't have 40 or 50 or 100,000 population. We're surrounded by that. So you have Covington, you have Cincinnati that dwarf us, and we're a small city, but have big city problems.
Right.
We're right across from Cincinnati. We're right across from Covington. We're right in the center of the metropolitan area of 2.5 million people. So we have a lot of people visit the city. So when you look at things like people talk about things that they read numbers, but you have to analyze beyond the numbers. So whether it be our budget or whatever, crime statistics. You can't take our crime statistics and compare it to a bedroom community.
Right.
We have millions of people that come into the city every year. We have thousands of people that go to Newport Pavilion every day. So our crime rate is going to be high per 1,000 population, because our population truly that the crime rates are derived from could be as high as 100,000 people.
Sure.
Not 15,000. Now, if we were tucked away in a corner and we did not have Newport on the Levee, and we didn't have Newport Pavilion, and we didn't have Newport Aquarium,
And the river.
then our crime rate would be lower. But we have a lot of people to go through the city, so our expenses though are higher. We have a bigger police department because of that. We have a higher road maintenance cost because we have a lot of people use our streets. Take 6th Street. You have all that commercial right there at the foot of 6th Street in Bellevue. How do they get there? Most they get there driving through Newport on 6th Street. I'm not knocking Bellevue, but the fact is, we derive cost. We get cost for that.
Sure.
Road cost for all our streets. Very few streets in the city are maintained by the state. Mama Street is, York Street is, parts of 10th Street is. So a lot of these other ones are our responsibility. Saratoga, Washington Avenue, 6th Street, those are all the cities. But because of our popularity and our geographic location, we have, in all the entertainment venues we have and retail venues, it's the way it is. So, and then it affects our budget. But, you know, Fort Thomas, and I'm not picking on them, Fort Thomas has a 22-man thereabouts police department. They have a much smaller fire department, too. They have less squad runs. We have the most squad runs in this county, by far. So we have 4,000 or 5,000, right, squad runs a year, Chief?
I'm sorry?
We have about 4,000 or 5,000 squad runs a year?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So quite a bit. Next closest, by the way, I think is Bellevue, Dayton, believe it or not. So it's quite a bit. So let's go over expenses really quick. You have the Office of the City Manager. Don't blame all that on me, by the way. Although some people probably would like to. Finance Department, which runs pretty lean. The Police Department and Fire, that by default, they're our largest cost. Public safety is 55% of our total budget. And it's been that way historically. When I was chief, public safety was 54% of our budget. Planning and zoning, building and historic preservation, there's the numbers, 1.5 million, 05 million. Code enforcement, 802,000. We did a big investment. Tonight, we just did another one with historic preservation. Last year, we increased our capabilities with level 3 building inspectors. And there again, it's a competitive environment. There's not many level 3s in the state. So that's where the costs come in there. Code enforcement, we have civilian staff in there, along with our enforcement officers as well. So they're with that. We have the swimming pool, and you see the costs there. We recently had to fix our motor that burned out, but we got lucky. We was able to have it rebuilt rather than have to buy a new one. And it's good to have it done by now because the day was a horrible day, right?
Yep.
Public Works. You see the numbers there, and I always point this out to people. It's not to knock anybody, but I think people do not have a perspective on the budget and what the revenue that's brought into the city for operation are.
Right.
Public Works budget, if you take the pilot payments out, is pretty much all we collect in property tax for everybody. Commercial and residential. Commercial being roughly 40% of our property tax. So Public Works alone is pretty much would eat all of our property tax up, just for Public Works. Recreation, we do spend a significant amount of money in recreation. That's really not an adequate number because a lot of the work's done by Public Works, but that number would typically be under Public Works. So we separate it out for accounting reasons, but that's actually under the main heading of Public Works. The municipal complex, we made a pledge when we built this building back in '94 that we would maintain it adequately, and hence that's why we have it budgeted every year for ongoing maintenance and expenses. Debt service, you can see that a little bit over 10% of our total budget for that. At one time it was much higher than that. So we work on that. Let's go to next, there we go, general fund. So I think reasonably so during COVID, if you go back the last 5 or 6 years here, 2021, slow down, well, it was slow down. So revenue dropped. You see the numbers, 22 million. Our expenses also dropped though during that year. So luckily for us, we're compensating that. So then the next year, the revenue started creeping back up quite a bit, and you see a big jump there, $3.5 million. Then the next year here, we have a jump. Some of these are aberrations. It's based on particular payments and stuff for that. And then the following year, it gets back to normal there on 23, 24, which is our current number. But you see where we're at. So we're still in the ballpark, 28 million for that. Now, going back to our conservative nature, you can see the proposed budget is actually less than what our revenues are coming in at for the current year. And actually, in our head, I'm feeling that our revenues are going to be coming in, because I did not count other projects we know are going to start this coming fiscal year for that, including US 27, including the hotel and the garage and everything. Our expenses, so we have a balanced budget, and we try to keep our expenses in line. So roughly that adds up to about 3 to 4% a year on most of these years, and I think that's been reasonable based on the cost of some of the stuff, the vehicles and everything else going. Now, if everything holds true lately, during our CAFR, our expense numbers have actually been coming in lower than what these numbers show. When we do our amended budget, they actually come in lower, and our revenues have come in higher, knock on wood. That trend continues. So it could be that we're pleasantly surprised this time next year. Again, we have virtually no, if any, discretionary funds. So we don't have any funds in there that's unlabeled that we use to pull out to pay for some sort of my fancy or whoever's fancy, that they do. So we just don't have those kind of funds. And we don't have it like that. Lenny in finance does a really good job of keeping everybody in line, and the department heads have done a really good job of staying within their budget, absent any emergencies for that. And if we do have to go out of budget, it's basically funds that we move from one line item to another. And so they meet with Lenny and Matt and figure out where we're going to move the funds from to making a purchase. And that's typically the standing policy. If somebody comes to me and wants to do something, and I say, well, if you got money in your budget, then you get with Lenny and Matt and just figure it out. And the software, correct me if I'm wrong, Lenny, will not allow you to spend on something. So our Springbrook software won't allow you to spend.
If you don't
So
have the money.
you have to get it worked out before you can spend any money on your budget for that.
I appreciate Lenny talking to me today, because I had a few questions. One was all the departments, or not almost all the departments' health expenses went up, but then he explained to me that we're accounting them in a different way now.
Yes.
That was encouraging.
Well, that would, because he explained it, but for everybody else, we showed as a transfer. And then now it's being expensed to the individual departments. But we're also taking proactive measures on the insurance committee. So we're looking to curtail our increases, so we're looking at changing how we're doing insurance. So and it's put to them, myself and John Hayden met with the committee, and we've told them we have got to make changes because we cannot subsidize the insurance plan.
Where are we with a project manager position?
The project manager, we've had that in there for the last couple of cycles. That's kind of a misnomer on the name. It's kind of more of a jack of all trades that we're looking at. It's real difficult. It's been with so many other things that we've been working on. It just hasn't been enough that we focused on it long enough to get it done. So we really have an issue with grants. You have got to have knowledge on grants. Not the plan for a grant's the simple part of it. I know I did as a police lieutenant, so with virtually no training. So the actual application and applying for a grant is simple.
Right.
It's the administration of the grant that is the problem.
Right.
There are so many reporting requirements, and different grants have different requirements. Some grants are simple. Some grants are tedious. We had a TAP grant one time, which used to be up on the highway patrol. And that's when I was a lieutenant. And I'll tell you what, every day I had to write a report on the activity, the DUIs, every day. And then I had to write a weekly report, then I had to write a quarterly report.
Jeez.
And it was for $11,000. It's like, geez, oh Pete's, I spent more than $11,000 writing reports.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So you can imagine what a $5 million grant could be. And then if you make a mistake,
you play hell.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
We got audited 3 times, I think 3 times by the state, not for anything we did wrong, over Pavilion Parkway. We got money for Pavilion Parkway, and something got lost somewhere in Frankfurt, and they sent people there 3 times. And Lenny knows he was a recipient of it, I think, a lot of that. Where they come down here, and we finally, I got disturbed enough, I said, go out to Pavilion Parkway and drive on it. I mean, the road's been built for 3 years, you know, so it becomes a problem. And it's a lot of work, and we just never really have sat down long enough to get it going. Now, as for the project management thing, Brian does a good job. The building inspectors do a good job with just actual project management. But I always one of these ones that worry about I'm missing something, and I just don't want things to fall through the cracks.
I think you're right. I think the problem is on both sides, you know. Is the grantee the one given the money? The
Yeah.
grantor is also challenged with resources.
Yes.
So they lose the communication.
Yeah.
So it's a combination on all sides of not having enough resources for
Yeah.
grant management.
Well, and let's just take the thing on US 27. US 27, if we had more staffing to be able to follow this stuff through, I don't have the time. I just don't have the time for that. What happened, I got bogged down in an easement. And, you know, had I been more attuned or whatever, or somebody been knocking on my door and getting me to move on certain things, we probably would have filed eminent domain for an easement 2 years ago. So here we are, we're supposed to be bid out October of '22. Here we are now pushing October of '24. And I guess we're coming close to a conclusion. I don't know, but Dan had to write a nasty gram to him, the property owner.
Is that where I think it is? At the top of the hill?
You know, it's right there at 16th and Monmouth.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But that, anyway, I don't want, but anyway.
So you're
that's the
hoping
kind
to
of
get a
things.
grant, a person that can monitor these grants and,
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion on there, and I think once we get past this, I mean, we put a lot of time, and no excuses, but we put a lot of time on getting the garage hotel project done. I'm still trying to get Margaritaville off and ready to go. So we have ongoing issues every day with Ovation, all good stuff. It's all good. It's all progress. We're moving forward. But it's a lot of work. I think there's more work than people sometimes realize that goes on. And there's always somebody that wants to meet with you, always. So anyway, at some point, I hope we move on it.
gotcha. I get the picture.
Yep.
I might have one more.
Yeah, Lenny, just to comment, I always appreciate the time that you and your staff take every year to go through the budget. It's always kind of interesting to look at some of where each of the funds go within all the individual buckets and departments. It's a very complex watch. Or some might say it's a bomb, I don't know, but it's important to get everything right, and I appreciate the level of detail that you and your staff take to ensure that our budget is up to speed and in good shape every year. So thank you for that.
I think we all agree. It's good work. Again, keeping the format the same is something that is important. It's so much easier to track year over year when you get used to the format. And we've been on this format for quite a while now, and it's,
We went back to it, right?
yeah, I mean,
We deviated for a little while.
it's helping.
Yes.
It's helping the process. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I want to talk about health insurance, Tom, and you know I want to talk about it. I'm following up on what Beth said. Our agreements with our employees is an 80-20 split, right? And we still end up taking $500,000 out of the general fund and offset because it's a self-insurance program. I don't know the answer. I don't profess to know the answer, but it rises to the level of, I think, importance here that it get resolved one way or the other. Either we go out to the private market and we, do that, or we continue to self-insure and understand clearly the benefits of this and that it's going to cost us an extra $500,000 every year.
Right.
Or we claw back from the employee and say, hey, this is what it's costing us over and above, you got to kick back to us.
Right.
So, enough said?
Well, there's process. I mean, there's progress. There's great progress being made
Yes, I
on
know
the
you're
committee. I
working.
sat in a meeting. There are answers. They're getting, where there's a path, there's a future, and
Okay.
and it looks bright.
All right, well, I'm
You agree with that, Lenny?
on it.
Yeah, no, so they're with it.
All right.
Right.
That's it.
I do want to, anything else from anybody?
I was just surprised there weren't, although I don't know who would be doing this, that we had no litter citations. 'Cause we have a problem with litter in different parts of town.
It's real hard.
It's hard to
Watch,
decide
they
where the
had somebody
litter's
doing
coming.
this like graffiti.
It's like, yeah.
I mean, we rarely catch somebody in the act on graffiti too. It's a crime of opportunity.
I was thinking, I'm thinking more of like, unfortunately, it seems to come from some of the commercial.
Yeah, we have cited different things. Now, it might be cited under a different thing through code. Because I consider like we do not turnouts, but dump outs and stuff like that. And we have popped some people for some of that stuff, so I don't know what that would be coming,
So it just,
after.
it's
I think
happening, but.
John would like to speak.
Don has a few words.
Yeah,
to
we
say.
have significant fines to the code world for stuff like that, trash in the yard, things of that nature. So that, I'm not sure what the budget line on that is, but that would be something different.
Well, that's good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so, anybody else?
I wanted to say that I also appreciate working with Lenny and Matt last week and going through in great detail a lot of the work that you've all been doing for several months now, quite a long time. I really appreciate that we are able to budget for increasing staff in several areas. It's very important work that's being done in planning and development, whatever the name of your whole department is, but all the code positions, historic preservation, certainly the increase, it's very easy to see the increase in the fire department budget, but it's perfect. We need that, and just grateful that we're able to do that at this point in our history, so.
I thank you all. It takes all of us working together cooperatively, and that's what I've always given the board due credit. It is important, like Janet reiterated tonight, and he's not on the current board, but he understands the importance. The stability is really important, so you keep your eye on the ball. And I've seen communities that can't do that. They change every 2 years or 4 years, and they never get anything done. And that's something we don't have to worry about here. I do want to acknowledge, though, my staff, Lenny and Matt, and anybody else unsung heroes in finance that contributed to the budget. All my department heads that participate and work with me in keeping their budget in line, not asking for ridiculous, requests. That's really makes my job a lot easier. And not having to sit down there and then just start plucking stuff out of the budget because, they come in with some silly stuff.
No boat this year?
No gold-plated Cadillacs or anything else, The chief tried to slide one by, but I said no.
Which chief?
Gold-plated Tesla.
I mean, let's face it, Chief Lewis already has the $1 million vehicles, all right?
You can just get it wrapped in gold. It doesn't have to be gold.
But all my
Gold
department
color
heads,
wrapping.
all my department heads do a really good job, and I'm proud of them all, because they come in with a reasonable budget, and they serve the taxpayers well. They're frugal, and we try to take care of our personnel with our means for that. And I really think this year, John Hayden got really involved with the budget this year, so he got a good taste of the budget as well for that. And there again, I ended with thanking Lenny and Matt. It's a marvelous feat every year, and they put forth a lot of effort for that. And now the stress can be off a little bit.
Yes,
So
good
thank
work
you
all. And you know what we're going to do? The stress will be off because we're actually going to vote. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Radwanski?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Recton?
Yes, we're meeting on this tomorrow night for the second reading?
Vice Mayor Fennell?
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli?
Yes, and in tandem, Commissioner's Ordinance number 14, which is essentially the same discussion.
An ordinance of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, adopting the budget for the city for the fiscal year July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, including an estimate of revenues and resources and making the annual appropriation in accordance therewith.
So moved.
Last chance, questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Smith Morrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Radwanski,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. I think this is the last item, Commissioner's Ordinance number 15.
An ordinance of the Board of Commissioners, City of Newport, Kentucky, amending Section 32.022 of the Code of Ordinances concerning the imposition of fines for code violations.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor, this is really just housekeeping, and I'll let Dan explain the reason for this particular issue.
When you read the violation sections in Chapter 32, the council refers to the fine schedule. And first of all, the indication was incorrect about where you look for it. Second of all, we got rid of the fine schedule way back in 2016. So housekeeping measures and finding this out the other day, I thought it would be best to go ahead and amend the ordinance so they know where to look for what the fine is for violations of matters that come before the code board, which is the penalty section set forth in that same section. So I have to bring it all together.
All right, any questions on the board? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Recton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fennell,
Yes.
Commissioner Radwanski,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith Morrow,
Yes.
Mayor Kaduli.
Yes. We got the department head comments. Chief Fangman.
Happy belated Father's Day, sir, and to all the other fathers, and I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Peluso.
I would just like to say that we've gotten 3 applications since we've been sitting here today.
Oh, that's
I'm going to clap for that.
That's bravo. That's great.
That's great. Brian.
Amazing.
Lenny.
We're almost at 9, I'm going to be real quick. I usually get the PVA certified roll at the end of July.
Okay.
What I like to do is I can't compute the compensating rate or the allowable rate, which is the comp plus 4, till I have watercraft numbers, railroad numbers, and the public service, which is like telecommunications, utilities, and distilled spirits. But what I like to do is take the PVA's assessments, and I'll leave the 2023 items, the railroad and all that, and just kind of see how things are trending. I usually shoot an early memo to the city manager so we can see how it's starting to head. So I know that's a hot topic right now. I know how my own assessment went, so
An effort
that's
to
something you
set
guys
the
are hearing
rate.
about, so.
That's an effort to actually have the rate, correct? The rate, the actual rate, the tax rate, to set the tax rate.
Yes, yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of forecasting a little bit. Obviously, we can't set it till I have those other figures, but it's kind of a good indicator.
What do we pay Danny Braun every year for those assessments? How
I
much?
believe it's 40, or around 40 grand. It's based upon
grand.
the assessment value.
It's based upon the assessment values.
Yeah, there's a rate times whatever our
All
assessment
right,
comes in.
thank you. Appreciate it.
That's all.
Thank you. Matt? John Hayden?
Good night, thank you, Mayor.
Well, no, Haley's not on this. Dan? Tiffany? City Manager Fromey?
Mayor, there again, I appreciate the leadership of the board. I'm really thrilled that we had the leadership award program that we gave to retiring board members and staff. So Jan was the first retired inductee. We have other ones that we're going to be bringing forward as the weeks of the months come forward. So I'm glad we finally got that program moving forward. It's long overdue, but I am grateful for that. I was happy for Jan tonight. I'll leave any comments about Juneteenth to the board members. You all were there with that, and so I appreciate tonight the meeting. We have a lot of work done, and everything's moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Ken?
Just a comment about Jan. When you called the roll tonight, I said present, because Jan would always say present. He never said here.
I didn't know that.
Forgot that.
Yeah, yeah. And Jan was, and it resonates with me, we build a lot of things, we do a lot of things, but we don't maintain them. Jan would harp on me about that, and I really appreciate his leadership and the fact that we did this tonight, and we're going to do more, because I know, Tom Gaduli Sr. and Jerry Peluso and Tom Ferrara, and a lot of people out there have given huge contributions to the city, and we should acknowledge those and represent them. As far as the Juneteenth celebration, it was wonderful. Second annual, and I think that Galen should be, congratulated for putting it on. A lot of fine words said, and I hope to be able to live up to the things that were said that day, and I'll try to do that. Italian Fest was a wonderful thing, Tom. 32 years is pretty amazing, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Julie?
Also, just have to echo how pleased I am to see Jan Nepshield recognized this evening. And he was on the board when we first moved here, and always enjoyed his comments and the work he did, for sure. Juneteenth, that was an excellent event, and Dalen really pulled it together very, very wonderfully. And just recognizing the African Americans who have contributed to the history of Newport, as well as those who are continuing to do good work for the well-being of our community. Italian Fest is also honoring the heritage of the Italians. It was great honoring those who are still with us. But to me, honestly, I will tell you the highlight is this firefighters contract. I am just over the moon that y'all were able to get that done, and really beneficial for Newport and for these dedicated individuals. So it's good work, and really proud to be able to help support that. Thank you. That's all I
Thank you,
have.
Julie. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. The staff always amazes me. I've seen a lot of different iterations of the staff, but just the work that goes into the budget, people that are spread over 1,000 different jobs in our corporation here. It's amazing, the dedication, people that want, like Jennifer, that want to contribute in a bigger way. 3 more people have applied for the firefighters position. I mean, that's just amazing. I don't, and all the work finance, Lenny and Matt have spent on the budget every year. I'm sure that's a major undertaking, major headache at times. But I just want to thank everybody for all their work. Italian Fest was awesome as always. I'm going to really miss that. It was nice of you to let me cut the ribbon. I do want to be an honorary Italian though, for like life. Can you do that?
Well, I know a lot of years they called you Beth Finelli.
I
got an eye at the end.
I still have a ribbon that says that. Well, just think about it. Maybe we can work something.
All right, we'll figure it out.
It's really hot this week. Just maybe keep an eye on your neighbors and folks that don't have air conditioning, and especially the elderly. It's going to be a rough week, but we'll make it through, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Mike?
Thanks, Mayor. I met former Commissioner Nepshield when I was door knocking in November of 2022. I got started really, really early, not even knowing it was going to be a primary or what the deal was. And Jan was, I didn't know who he was, but I found out pretty quick. And he was very, very candid and frankly very helpful. A very nice guy, retired teacher. So I do appreciate that. Italian Fest, I also want to thank Public Works and all the effort that they did to make sure that the site was clean all 3 days. I think that was the best I've ever seen in all the years I've been going to Italian Fest. So I think that's fantastic. Juneteenth this Wednesday. I hope it's a day that everybody can find time to reflect and to be able to move forward as a nation. And one last thing, it was in the paper about the Kentucky League of Cities Summer Summit. I do want to thank all the staff that went down there with me for the various days that were applicable to their disciplines. One thing that, this has happened a couple times now, going down to KLC events that people speak very highly of us throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we're really fortunate to have that. They admire the work that we have here. They admire our businesses, our tourism. They admire our staff even, and some of them even express an interest in getting together with our staff to be able to take advantage of our best practices. So thank you again for all of those who went down there and attended that with me. And with that, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. Again, you guys hit almost all the topics, but I'm going to touch on them all again. Garden tour. Julie, thanks for being on that. 900 tickets sold, record.
Yeah.
Record year, pretty impressive.
Right.
Juneteenth celebration. the second annual, but largest one ever and best one ever. Presented a lot of awards, a lot of people had a good time, and again, the message resonates with all of us, and we all want to live to be better in that regard. Juneteenth was done well. Dalen Garland did great work, and it was a lot of work, and we look forward to having a third one of those. Italian Fest, it was great to actually give you the honor of cutting the ribbon, and we will do something for you in the future as well. It was well attended, the weather was hot, and all of our volunteers did great work. People had a good time. I think overall the event was a total success, which is a great year. Weather cooperates, which is important. It's Pride Month. I want to bring that up. In the end, that's something that's important, and we have a lot of people in our community that we need to celebrate with this month. Budget, efficient, unbelievable how well it's working. But I hope someday that we can all have pet projects and our financial improvement is at a level where we can say, this is what we need to do this year. We're on that path. We were at a path of 0 reserves not that long ago. We have reserves for the rainy day now. We've accommodated issues that we know are financial things coming in the future, and all that stuff is actually very bright. We got a bright future. Things are going well. Last thing, it was an honor for me to present that to Jan. I've known Jan since I was 4 years old, looking up at that mountain of a man with a booming voice. Spending lots of time learning from him, watching these meetings as a little kid through my journey. It's been incredibly exciting. So, such an honor to present that to him. And again, we committed to do this for lots of people that have served in Newport while we have the time to spend with them, to thank them. And I want to thank all of you for your endurance. 2 hours and almost 10 minutes. We're not going to quite get there because I'm going to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.